Hey guys, so sorry. Sorry, just need to send a text. But yeah, I guess my previous video kind of like, I don't want to say blew up because it's like 2,000 views, but yeah, I guess it just kind of started popping up on the YouTube algorithm and people started getting it recommended to them on their homepages. So yeah, I got like over 2,000 views, which is like kind of crazy because I did not expect that to happen at all. So that was kind of like a nice surprise. And yeah, I now have like 100 something subscribers, so that's pretty crazy. Um, so hi, good to see everyone. Yeah, so I am back again with another just chat about what's been going on with me and some talk about books. Um, yeah, again, I am feeling a little bit under the weather. I'm hoping it's just like my period. Um, but I do have a friend who has like strep throat or something that I saw on Sunday. So I'm really hoping it's not that. Um, but I don't feel that bad right now. Yeah, I'm a little bit coffee and fatigued, and also maybe it's just allergies. So yeah, I'm hoping it just kind of like blows over before the weekend. Um, yeah, I don't know. I guess just to talk a bit about what's been going on the past few weeks. First of all, I got a haircut, which I am really liking. I felt like before I was looking a lot like Edna Mode because I just like impulsively just like chopped my bangs by myself a few weeks ago, and they were like growing out and it wasn't looking too great, and the rest of my hair was just like flat and straight. So I just wanted to get a haircut to have like more dimension and like fix the bangs. Um, and I think that the hairdresser did a really good job. Um, this is my first time going to this hair salon. It's called Hazuki Hair and it's in Prospect Heights, which is like really close to me. So really happy that um, I found this place, and I think it's relatively reasonably priced for like Japanese hair salon. Um, but yeah, I'm like really into this kind of like layered, choppy vibe. Um, yeah, and then this week has been a little bit strange. I feel like I've just been like deeply stressed about the world and our government in general, and also been having a hard time like making money and finding a job. And I think when this week, like when a lot of the art institutions started posting stuff saying how the NEA, the National Endowment of the Arts, started taking away all this funding for like a bunch of these theaters and literary institutions, and um, just yeah, a ton of arts organizations are losing their funding to, you know, pay artists and create new work, and that's really disheartening. I think just as someone who is involved in the art community, and just like knowing how hard it is already to like make money as an artist, and um as art administrators, it's just really disheartening to like know that the federal government has like no interest in supporting the arts in our country. And I think that, yeah, it's just gonna be really rough for a lot of people who aren't rich who are trying to make art now, and I think that the wealthy. Oh shit. Oh, sorry. I think that the wealthy art hoes are gonna have to step up and like help to um, help donate and financially support these institutions in a time of need. Specifically, like a lot of defunded projects and orgs are ones that are helping to champion like minority voices and queer voices. So it's just pretty devastating. Yeah, and I don't know. It's just difficult too because I don't really know what I can do about it except for like buy tickets to go see shows and support friends and spread awareness, because unfortunately I'm like not rich although I would love to be, so can't really like do much to help the situation. But I like personally have friends and know people who are like directly affected by like all the stuff that's going on with the administration, and it's just it's been pretty stressful in that regard. Yeah. Also, like, we're definitely going into a recession and the job market fucking sucks. And yeah, I've just been kind of going back and forth between like maniacally talking, like trying to network with people and apply to jobs, and like sending like so many job applications every day. And then after like a week of that, I'll like burn out and not even touch like LinkedIn or whatever for like a week, and then I'll get stressed about it again and then like start like freaking out. So that's been happening. Um, and yeah, I mean, my landlord also increased the rent, and I'm basically being priced out of my apartment, so I have to move later this year, which is really fucking annoying because moving in New York is like one of the most horrible experiences ever. um, so yeah, but despite all of the stressful stuff, I feel like I have been quite creatively inspired. I've been writing a lot, just been like engaging in a lot of discourse about art and like going to see a lot of shows and like making new friends that are artists and like expanding just like my community, which has been really great. Um, yeah, so there has been good stuff happening. I've been seeing some really good shows recently. Been talking to friends about making things together, which is always exciting. And the short film that I shot last year is, the sound design is pretty much completed, and we're moving forward with the edit, which is really, really cool. So yeah, I think good things are also happening, but it's just a lot of craziness right now, which I think a lot of people can relate to. So okay, but back to the main business of this channel, which is talking about books. So I have been reading a lot of really good books recently. I've been reading a lot. I feel like it's maybe because I've been a bit depressed. So I think when I'm kind of feeling low, I tend to resort to like reading a lot to take my mind off things, which I guess is maybe one of the only good-ish things about being depressed in my personal situation. But I just finished reading this book, Comemadre by Roque Larraquy. I think this was published in 2017. Roque Larraquy is an Argentinian author, which makes sense because every single book that I have read by an Argentinian person I've like absolutely loved. And yeah, I don't know what they're feeding the children in Argentina, but it's producing some really good writers. But But yeah, like Mariana Enriquez, I love all her short stories. Her book Our Share of Night is maybe like one of my favorite books of all time. Borges, obviously. Samantha. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. Schweblin. Cesar Aria. Like, there's so many amazing Argentinian authors, and I feel like they just write about darkness really well. I think there's something about maybe the collective trauma of Argentinian history that just creates some really like juicy dark yeah, lots of horror elements in their literature, which I like love. um but yeah, Comemadre is quite a short book, but it's split into two parts. The first part is following a doctor in a mental institution. I think maybe it's set in like the 1920s, and it kind of follows him as he is like obsessively in love with like the head nurse at the hospital, and he gets like dragged into this like really crazy experiment with the patients in this hospital. And then the second part is in the modern day and is following this like contemporary artist who just kind of does the most extreme things to make art, and there's kind of um, some connections between the two of the stories. But yeah, it was incredible. It was really dark, at times really, really funny, um, really insightful, some very like shocking and like really strange scenes that get under your skin. Um, yeah, I really loved it. I read it in maybe two sittings, since it's not a very long book. But yeah, if you like weird fiction, if you like horror, if you like the grotesque, um, but also really insightful, funny, and um, like kind of like mind-boggling type of literature, I'd really, really recommend this book. Yeah, I loved it. I gave it a 5 stars on Goodreads. Okay, so another incredible book that I finished recently was Jane, a Murder by Maggie Nelson. Wow, this book was so moving and beautiful and dark, and wow, yeah. So basically, this is kind of like a collage of poetry, prose, like newspaper clippings, and parts of this person Jane's own diary entries, which I'll get into who she is a bit later. But yeah, kind of like a collage memoir, centered around the murder of Maggie Nelson's aunt Jane, who was murdered when she was in her early 20s, I think, as part of murdered in a really horrible way, as and it was a part of a series of serial murders committed in the 1970s around the University of Michigan. And all of these murders targeted young women, who were then raped and beaten before they were killed. So, like, a really just disgusting series of events. But Maggie Nelson was born after Jane's death, so she actually never got to meet or know her aunt at all. But I think her whole life, ever since she was a kid, her family members were always telling her that she reminded them of her Aunt Jane. So I think as a child, she was always intrigued by this person that she could never know and wanted to like know more about her. So yeah, I think that this was just maybe her way of piecing together who Jane was and maybe looking at her own life and her own family through the prism of Jane and this horrible event. I don't know where the sentence was going, but yeah, I think this was maybe her way of doing that, but through the focal point of this very specific event. Yeah, and it's just so beautifully written. I think Maggie Nelson is so smart and talented and has such a way with language. Her way of writing is not like flowery or like overly like expressive at all, but just it always is so deeply emotional. But yeah, and I think like what I took away the most from this novel is that I just relate so deeply to this person, Jane. Like the parts in this book that include her actual diary entries, maybe I'll just read a portion of one of them. I don't know if this is the best one, but this is from 1966, and she wrote, "Careless dribble again, strange lying in bed, unable to sleep. That's all familiar, but the thoughts inside me are not. Questions over and over, home too long, back too soon, alone, really alone. What are you like when you're alone? Ugly, heavy, disreputable, unsure, awake, useless. This room is hideous." So I don't know, I just like felt like I really got to know the essence of who Jane was through this book, and I can like deeply relate to her even though we grew up in such different times and in such different circumstances, and you can just tell that she was such a smart, like curious person who felt things so deeply. And yeah, I'm like, wow, like she was just really a young woman just like me, trying to find her place in the world and discovering like what she believes in and like what's important to her. And it's just really, really tragic that her life was cut short because she deserved to live. And I don't know, like I just felt deeply for Jane and for the rest of her family who had to grieve her death. And it also just made me think like, wow, I could never imagine such an event happening to like my family, and like what kind of trauma this would cause on like a family unit. Like I can't imagine my parents like going through the same scenario as Jane's parents, you know, like hearing from a police officer that their daughter was like beaten and murdered. Like that's just so horrible. Yeah. There's so many other things I could say about this book, but yeah, it was just really moving and powerful and important too. And I think I read this book, all of it, in like one day, and I spent the rest of the night like Wikipediaing like this like series of murders, like going down a rabbit hole and like looking up um the people who were arrested and like all these conspiracy theories, and I was just like, holy shit, like there is some really fucked up stuff that happens. And I don't know, just to see how such an event changed, like really embedded itself deep in like Maggie Nelson's personhood and how it affected her mother and like the rest of their family is just so, yeah, it's a lot. And yeah, wow. Maggie Nelson is a fucking goat, and this was absolutely incredible. Okay, and then speaking of on the topic of women being murdered, fun, I also read Dictee by Theresa Kyung. Finally read this book. Actually, this book was given to me by my friend John like maybe like 5 years ago at this point, and it was just sitting on my bookshelf and I never read it. But I finally read it, and I'm so happy I did because this was an experience. Theresa was also a woman who was murdered. She was murdered at gunpoint in New York City I think in the 80s, when she was also very young, like in her 20s or something. And I think this book was published after her death. So, yeah, quite sad circumstances. Maybe I'll just read the blurb, just like give, because it's a very hard book to try to explain. But the blurb says, a classic work of autobiography that transcends the self, Dictee is the story of several women. The Korean revolutionary Yu Guan-soon, Joan of Arc, Demeter and Persephone, Cha's mother, Hyun Sun-hyo, a Korean born in Manchuria to first-generation Korean exiles, and Cha herself. The element that unites these women is suffering and the transcendence of suffering. The book is divided into 9 parts structured around the Greek muses. Cha deploys a variety of text, documents, images, and forms of address and inquiry to explore issues of dislocation and the fragmentation of memory. The result is a work of power, complexity, and enduring beauty. So yes, this is an extremely experimental piece of work. I'm not even going to attempt to try to decipher like what this book was about or like what Theresa was trying to do in this book, because honestly I feel like I'd have to read this maybe several more times to try to like analyze it a bit more or like solidify my thoughts on that. But what I can tell you is how I felt about reading it, which to me, my first feeling like after I finished the book was that it kind of felt to me like some sort of religious text or like a codex of some sort. Yeah, it just was so, something about it is so beautiful and mysterious, and I feel like it would do it a disservice in trying to decipher why that was about this book, because I think the part of the book that makes it inscrutable is also the part that makes it extremely beautiful and affecting, I guess. Yeah, but like, I think this book, the parts of prose that Theresa writes are so raw and just so like they're written in extremely short sentences, first person, like present tense, just it's, you really feel like you're experiencing these like altered states of being like directly as it happens to each character. And like the blurb said, like there's a lot about the exploration of suffering, like the feeling of suffering, like in the mind and the body. There's a lot about memory and time, and the perception of that. There's also, it's also, I think, a deeply like feminine novel. Like there's something about like the feminine mystique in this book that I really enjoyed. Yeah, it covers like there's it touches upon like the oppression of women, trauma that women go through, the way that, you know, women deal with that and like transcend the things that are put upon them. I don't know, like it's just it's so it's just so unique, and I once again am, yeah, I mean the fact that the author is dead, I think it adds, although it's, I feel like obviously it's very tragic and horrible that she was murdered, but I feel like it in the like literary what is the word I'm trying to look for, like in the literary discourse, I feel like her death adds some kind of um like mystique or aura to this book. Um and I really did feel like I was holding like a piece of Theresa's soul or reading something deeply personal and um sacred to her when yeah, while I was experiencing the text. So yeah, um very, very, very beautiful, and can't believe it's taken me so long to read this. Thank you, John. Okay, I've like tried to record this portion like 10 times, so hopefully this is gonna be the last time I try, because I'm getting so annoyed at myself for not being able to speak. Um, but the last book that I wanted to talk about is Enter Ghost by Isabella Hammad. Yeah, I read this book maybe early this year, or maybe even like end of last year, but I just kept forgetting to talk about it, which is crazy because it's so fucking good. Um, yeah, Isabella Hammad is a Palestinian British author. Um, yeah, she's just an incredibly talented young writer. Like since finishing the book, I've listened to several like podcasts and interviews with her, and I just find her to be such like a really articulate, smart, um just like a very like graceful and like poised, like in the way that she carries herself in interviews. And obviously she's Palestinian, so she speaks a lot to that, and I just think that she is a really important voice in like the literary canon right now, for like obvious reasons. But yeah, this book was really, really good. Really moving and rich and very informative, and I just enjoyed it so much. And yeah, also to caveat, this book was published in 2024. I think before, I mean, definitely, or actually, I'm not sure. I mean, published in 2024, but obviously written like previously to that. So, um, it's set in modern times, like in Palestine and Israel, but maybe like 5 years before today, before like the war escalated to this like horrific point. And yeah, so mm, so the book follows our main protagonist named Sonia, who is a Palestinian actress, or a Palestinian person who's currently based in London. She's an actress, and so she's kind of had this really tumultuous affair with this theater director, and she is kind of escaping to Haifa in Israel, to visit her sister, um, who lives there still, but the rest of her family has since immigrated from Israel to Britain. Um, but they grew up, her and her sister and her family, they all grew up in Israel and have had experiences kind of going back and forth between Palestine and Israel when they were younger. But basically, she goes back to Israel to kind of visit her sister and other extended family members. And then she ends up meeting this person named Miriam, her sister's friend, who wants to stage Hamlet in the Gaza Strip with like an all Palestinian cast. And so she ends up becoming involved in this play, and through the events surrounding trying to produce the play and fund the play and stage the play, and given that it's a like a very Palestinian production, they come across a lot of obstacles, with Israeli authorities, and yeah, it's just a lot going on there. But then also, she's also going through kind of like this personal transformation, um, like revisiting her childhood home and going to Gaza Strip. And there's this one really moving part of the book where she remembers this time when she is visiting, as a child, she is visiting extended relatives in Palestine, and one of her cousins, I think, or something, is like a Palestinian hunger striker, and her sister go to visit this hunger striker who is like hasn't eaten um, for however long and is basically dying and like refuses to eat. And that kind of that memory or that experience has really kind of dug itself deep into her soul, and she kind of keeps revisiting that and trying to figure out what happened to that person and the rest of the family and like all this stuff. And at the same time, you know, she's becoming more and more politicized, more personally like invested in the cause for like Palestinian, I guess, liberation, like having felt disconnected from her family and her culture for so long living in London. And at the same time, they're like rehearsing this play of Hamlet, and like more and more the cast and the director begin to tie or interpret Hamlet in a way that, you know, has to do, kind of becomes like an allegory for the Palestinian cause. And yeah, it's such an expansive and rich story, and the characters are so realistic, like, and so, yeah, just extremely well crafted characters, extremely well crafted character arcs. Specifically, Sonia is just such a multifaceted, like, interesting, like, slightly caustic, like, really like sensitive person. And I also really enjoyed just the way that Isabella wrote about the artistic process of interpreting Hamlet and rehearsing and staging and just directing the play, and like all the dramaturgy that goes into such a thing. But also, like, yeah, it was just such, I really enjoyed that really deep delving into the artistic process in like a fictional sense. And yeah, it made me like love Hamlet more. And it made me like want to like reread some Shakespeare plays. I don't know, I just found it to be such a moving book, like such an important book. Um, just a really well crafted like political fiction, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to anything else that she writes. I'm currently like like partway through reading The Parisian by her, which is her debut novel. It's like a thick ass book, like it's somewhere over there, but I'm about like 1/3 of the way through, and I don't know, I'm like, oh shit, like I do really want to finish it, but it's just so long, and I don't know if I can in my current state. But I really am not, I am not going to DNF it. I will finish it because I am very much, or I was very much enjoying it. Um, but yeah, incredible book. Really enjoyed, and I would urge like everyone to read it. Like obviously because of the subject matter and its relevance in our current times, but also because it's just an extremely engaging and yeah, an extremely engaging story. Even beyond, even like with that aspect taken out. Okay. I don't want to talk anymore. But I think that's all the books I wanted to cover. I want to just give a special shout out to the book I'm currently reading, which is The Wall by Marlen Haushofer, who is a German author. But I am deeply, deeply loving this so far. It's kind of giving like I Who Have Never Known Men vibes, which is like one of my like favorite books. Kind of similar premise, but oh my god, I'm so deeply enjoying this, and it's already made me cry like multiple times. It's just so there's a lot of like nature and covers a lot like relationship with animals, and it's just a really it's half unsettling and creepy and half kind of very cozy and moving, which is something I'm really enjoying right now. But yeah, I will probably finish this within the next few days. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching. If you have watched up into the end, wow, like thank you so much. But yeah, I hope I'm not actually getting sick. I feel like every time I try to turn on the camera to film it, I'm always sick or like starting to get sick or something. So I would like to break this cycle. I like to be healthy. But yeah, bye. Bye.